there! Today we're going to talk about venues because the darkroom scenes we could film in our own studio, but our house is not big enough to recreate some ice castle. And again, I needed some inspiration, so in that case I was actually lucky because I already knew some videos that inspired me. It was Lindsay Sterling's Crystal Ice, yeah. So you see all those icy walls, white bluish colors, no straight lines, only some kind of curvy lines, like fractals. Alas, we didn't have any such ice castles around Ottawa. Something close, but not exactly. Not in June though. And yeah, in other parts of Canada there are actually such ice castles, but again not in June, and we made the plan to release the video in December. So we had to go another way. Besides, even if we chose that way to go to the real ice castle, to bring all the dancers with us and everything, again I didn't think we could afford it within our budget. So I thought, well, maybe we can find some castle looking venue and then modify its interior slightly with light or with curtains to create that image of ice.
My fantasy was to find a church that would look both spiritual and fantasy-like, and to decorate it, and that would be perfect for me.
Well, and we actually found one, All Saints Events. Yeah, we just found it in Google. And we really liked not just loved its interior, but the problem was that we couldn't really modify it. So it was nice, but it wasn't really icy. And we couldn't really hang any curtains because it was just not allowed to hang anything on the structure of the church itself. So if we wanted to modify something, we had to recreate that structure inside, and then what's the point? And also it was disallowed to use any fog machine, for example, to create this misty atmosphere. So while we liked it, it wasn't really an option. And another problem at the church was the floor. It was pretty old with some cracks and gaps, and it wasn't really safe for dancers.
Right, and we also checked some restaurants. One of them was in a very nice heritage building. We liked the inner design and the whole setup, but we didn't feel like we could fit everything we wanted inside that.
Yeah, I remember that one. It was really nice, like a ballroom, but it got exactly the same problems. Yeah, well, the floor was new, but it was made of ceramics, and also
slippery.
It was slippery, so also not good for dancers. And again, no fog machine and nothing to be attached, so
we had to let that one go as well.
And then I was a little bit concerned. It's like, okay, so where do we actually shoot that part? I felt like, oops, this whole project is in jeopardy because we cannot find the right venue for us. And then someone, I don't remember actually who was that, but someone told us, like, why don't you check theaters?
Right?
Yeah, local theaters.
Yeah.
And then I was like, why this idea didn't come to us before? Because this is a theatrical song, and renting a theater and making all the interior and all the acts on stage, it was like an obvious thing, but we just didn't think about it.
And that was super exciting because both of us love musicals so much. We drag each other to each musical that we can possibly afford, and then we are excited to see the dancers and the decorations. And now, while choosing the musical theater, we were joking around that next step would be making a full musical, and maybe we will.
So we both were on the same page, and I started looking for theaters, and right away I bumped into another problem, because it was June and we had to have our video shoot in October if we wanted to release the final video in December. But the problem was that June, it was too late to find some available spot in local theaters for October. Because we specifically looked for weekends, because we didn't want our dancers to miss the school, so we only looked for weekends, and we couldn't find any. So I thought, well, what about some backup plan? Maybe Friday would work, because maybe we could come to the theater in the morning or Friday morning, prepare all the decorations, and then dancers who would come after school, like 4 p.m., and we will film scenes with them. And before 4 p.m. we could film scenes with you only. So I found some theater that was available on Friday in October, and I immediately booked it just in case. And then 2 or 3 days later, the irony, I find another theater with some interesting option.
When I heard the theater's name, I was shocked. I was literally so surprised, because I remember that a few years ago I was participating in this project with other vocalists. I was singing, and we were shooting the video in the same theater, in the same theater. It was so magical and so amazing that now we got to do our own video on the same stage.
So no matter how ironical it was to get to that theater, we talked to the coordinator, and coordinator said that, well, it's not exactly that they got an available weekend. They didn't. All weekends in October were reserved, but for one of them a client did not pay the deposit, and I was like, immediately, here I am, here's my checkbook, I'm ready to pay for not just deposit for the entire day, just give the spot to us. Like, that client did not pay, okay, his problem. I want this theater right now. So the coordinator called the client and asked what's going on, and the client gave up on that spot, and we immediately paid deposit, not the entire amount, and we got our venue on weekend, Saturday 28th of October. And we lost our deposit that we paid for the previous theater, yes, 2 days ago. But we got our venue.